Welcome to bringing Jesus back into focus. I'm a pacifist Christian. I was born into the Jewish Christian Catholic Church in 1957, left when I was 16 because they were saying Yahweh, the two-headed God of the Jews, a God of war, one God, and a God of love, another God, one God, and they're both the God of Jesus. And I said, no, Jesus is love and non-violence. Yahweh, who tells the Jews to go down to Jericho and slaughter every man, woman and child, steal the gold, silver and brass and take it back to his temple, and Joshua goes and does it, says, thank you, Yahweh. That's not the God of Jesus. That's Mars, the Roman war god. That's Ares, the Greek war god. That's Sekhmet, who breathes fire, the Egyptian stinking war god. That's Yahweh, war god, the stinking fire-breathing war god. That is Sekhmet. The Jews worship the war god Sekhmet of the Egyptians, but they call it Yahweh. They all had a war god, and they had a God of love. Love your neighbour as yourself. Love a foreigner who is amongst you as if they are Jewish, and love them as if they're Jewish. That's another God. Go down to all the foreigners at Jericho, kill them all, steal all their treasure, burn the place to the ground, steal their land. That's a war God. Now, if the world doesn't wake up to this, and I mean the world, it's unbelievable. I'm really shocked that the Jewish people themselves haven't created a branch of the Jewish faith where they rip out all these references to this stinking war god. Rip them out and deny it. So, well, that's not the real God. Oh, this loving God who says, treat everyone as yourself. Yeah, that's Yahweh. Well, either way, you've called them by the same name, and you can't do that. The Romans didn't do it, the Greeks didn't do it, and the Egyptians didn't do it. You have to call a loving God by a different name. A God of love is not a brutal, murdering, genocidal killer and thief and liar. That's why Jesus said they were children of Satan. He said they were worshipping a war god, and they shouldn't do it. It's a dualistic religion. So I left the Jewish Christian Catholic Church when I was 16 and studied Buddhist teaching. I knew Buddhist was a pacifist. No, to my amazement, Jesus taught the exact same thing Buddha taught. Buddha said you've got to clean out the dirt from your mind, the adventitious negativities in your mind, because it's blocking the experience of the clear light mind, which is free of all evil. Jesus taught it's not the dirt on the outside of your body that's the problem, it's the dirt inside the cup, inside your mind. You've got to clean the inside of your mind out. And what did Jesus say? And then your whole body will be filled with light. You'll have the same clear light mind experience that Jesus and Buddha both had. There's no evil in their minds. They see evil and they engage with it, but they are not evil. That's what enlightenment means. And that means your spiritual body, which you've got with you, and your spiritual mind is fully alive, and you are primarily spiritual now, and you're in a body of flesh for a little while longer until it dies. Then your spiritual body leaves because it has come to life. As Jesus said to the disciples, heal the sick and bring those dead to the spirit back to life. Because the flesh isn't life. The flesh is death. At the end, all it is death. But the spirit, if it comes alive, that's life eternal. So Jesus said it's your spiritual body that's the most important body you've got. But you've got to make sure it's alive and well. So you've got to be a pacifist Christian to be a true Christian. I'm a pacifist Christian. The Amish, Quakers, Assyrian Christians, they're pacifists, but only the Assyrian Christians, I think, amongst those three, acknowledge that the Jews are worshipping a different God. As I say, they're worshipping two gods, two heads on one body. It's that simple. That's the correct definition of Yahweh, a two-headed God, opposing Godheads on one body called Yahweh. The body's Yahweh, the heads are different. And that's the most accurate description of Yahweh I know of in the world. It's simple and accurate and logical, intelligent and correct. And so the Assyrians know that, and they also don't like the book of Revelation. And I say rip it out and burn it. That's the most disgusting, slanderous book ever written about Jesus that I've ever come across. So I'm a Christian who believes these sorts of things. I didn't realise how rare that was until I started investigating these things a few years ago and visited a lot of different denominations, and I was shocked. Some of them were just synagogues, that's all I can tell you. They were just studying the Jewish religion and talking about Yahweh, and Jesus is coming back on the clouds to throw all the bad, evil people into hell and cause wars and sicknesses and starvation. It's going to be great because we're all going to be saved, but they're not. They don't even read Jesus' words. I've come to save the world, not condemn it. They're his words. And now they're saying, oh, he's come back to condemn it though. It's a lying con job. That is the most satanic book ever written, I think, the book of Revelation. It's certainly the most filthy slander about Jesus that I've ever read. Even atheists don't slander like that, Jesus like that book, or God, the loving creator of God, of Jesus. So look, I had to write the Gospels of Jesus Unplugged. It's available around the world. Get the second edition. I've got to cancel the first edition. I had to rush it out because I was really ill and nearly dying. My body of flesh and nearly coming into the presence of the loving creator. So I had to get something out. But this is a much better edition. And essentially speaking, I'll just read a little bit of this back cover here. These translations of the Gospels of Jesus remove the Jewish overlays and distortions placed over the universal teachings of Jesus and spiritual way of non-violence and love. Our mortal minds change from being dualistic into singular minds, feeling all the things through the eye of love. Jesus said, if your eye is single, you'll be filled with light. But if dualistic, you'll be divided and will be filled with darkness. So Jesus is saying we can have an inner spiritual awakening if we search for it. He said that. He calls it the treasure hidden in the field of earth or flesh. So we're reading through the book. It's available. You can buy it as an EPUB. It should be available. Once I cancel the first edition, it should pop up more around the web in the world. I think it would be a very good book for Jewish Christians to read because I'm only a Christian and I've never been poisoned by the Jewish religion or influenced by it in any way whatsoever to understand who Jesus is, except for such things as Jesus saying, love your neighbour as yourself. He repeats some of the good Yahweh sayings, but he never says any of the war god sayings of Yahweh. And that's why in the Gospels, Jesus never said the word Yahweh or Jehovah. He couldn't. He's not a child of Yahweh because there's two Yahwehs, you see. That's why he couldn't use the word. He couldn't say that word. If he said, I'm the child of a loving spiritual creator and it's not Yahweh, the two-headed God, they would have stoned him to death straight away. He couldn't say he's the child of another God who's only love, you see, who can't hurt anyone. Because then they would have said, well, our God helps us kill our enemies. You must be talking about another God. We're going to kill you. And that's why he couldn't say the word Yahweh. They would have killed him for blasphemy. He would have been saying, the real God only loves. And he would have said he told them, you're children of Satan. You're worshipping a war god. Stop doing it. He was talking about the war god. We're into chapter 10, Matthew. The following Gospel of Matthew will combine any teachings of Jesus that are repeated in the other Gospels into one account containing all the important points. The other Gospel accounts of the same teaching are listed alongside each of Matthew's account. Salt of the earth, Matthew 5:13. Jesus said, salt is good and you are the spiritual salt of the earth, and everyone needs to be salted with the light of spiritual life. And every material sacrifice will be seasoned with this salt. But if your salt has lost its saltness and spiritual quality, how shall it be restored? It is no longer of any use, and men just throw it away. So always have the salt of spirituality in you, and be in peace with one another. Author. Jesus tells us we must always hold on to and live out of our spiritual life while here on earth. Then all our material life will be empowered by our loving Creator's spiritual life force in our spiritual body. But if we lose that loving life force, we will be of no spiritual use to anyone. Our physical bodies and material flesh need to be seasoned with this spiritual life force to enable us to come alive to our spirit and bring heaven's love to all in need on earth. Jesus fulfills the law of love, Matthew 5:17-20. Jesus said, do not think I came to abolish the law of love or the good prophets, but to fulfill the law of love and make it complete and whole. I say to you that unless you justify yourselves in greater love than the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter the heavenly spiritual world. Author. Jesus tried to lead the Jews out of their dualistic belief in their two-headed God Yahweh of love and peace and war and murder, and come into the fullness of only love. Do not be in anger. Matthew 5:21-26. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said to those of olden times, 'You shall not kill, and whoever kills will be in danger of damnation.' But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother for no reason shall be in danger of damnation. And whoever says to his brother, 'Rakah,' that is worthless one, shall be in danger of the judgment of the council. But whoever says, 'You fool,' shall be in danger of hell fire. Therefore, if you are bringing your spiritual gift to our loving Creator, and remember that another was wronged by you, go first to the one who you wronged. Then reconcile with them and make good, and return to offer your spiritual gift to our loving Creator with a clean spirit. Agree with your accuser and accept responsibility quickly while you are still alive with him. Otherwise he may deliver you to the judge hand you over to the officer, and you will be cast into prison. Assuredly I say to you, you will not be released from prison until you have paid in full for your wrongdoing." That's karma, reaping what you sow, Jesus is saying. Author: Jesus reminds us that spiritual love goes beyond actions and includes our words. To hurt someone physically or verbally hurt their spirits is equally wrong. And to avoid reaping the suffering we have caused to another after we die, we must go and apologize while they are still alive, and offer any compensation we may need to give them. Then our own spirits are cleansed, and once again we can come into the presence of our loving spiritual Creator in heaven. Lust is not love. Matthew 5:27-28. Jesus said, "You have heard it said in the old way, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks upon another with lust for them has already committed adultery in his heart and mind." Author: Jesus guides us to control not only our actions and words, but even our thoughts that may hinder our true spiritual love from arising. This is moving us towards a complete spiritual awakening of body and mind. Beautiful. You've got to be at one with love in all ways, in all areas of your life, as best you can. Cut away your sin, Matthew 18:7-9. Jesus said, "Woe to this world because of temptations to sin. For circumstances in this world can cause them to come into existence. But woe to that one who brings the temptation into this world. If you commit a wrongdoing by using your hand or foot in an evil way and cannot stop doing so, it would be better to cut them off to prevent yourself sinning further. Then by maiming your temporary body of flesh to prevent your spirit being taken into darkness, you can rise after death into the fullness of a perfect spiritual body in heaven. But if you continue using your hands or feet in performing wrongdoings until you die, you will propel your spirit and soul to enter the hell of burning realizations from which there is no escape, until your spirit and soul have experienced all the wrongs you have committed to others or yourself. Those who enter there will wail and cry aloud. And if your eyes cause you to perform wrongdoings or evil and you cannot stop doing so, it would be better to pluck them out to prevent yourself sinning further. Then by maiming your temporary body of flesh to prevent your spirit being taken into darkness, you can rise after death into the fullness of your perfect spiritual body in heaven. But if you continue using your eyes to commit wrongdoings or evil until you die, you will propel your spirit and soul to enter the hell of burning realizations from which there is no escape, until your spirit and soul have experienced all the wrongs you have committed to others or yourself. Those who enter there will wail and cry. Author: Jesus is giving us a dramatic example of the consequences of performing wrongdoings while here on earth. He does not mean this to be taken literally, but to be a very serious warning so we can guard ourselves from committing wrongdoings or evil that will damage our spiritual life and propel our spirit and soul into a hellish experience. Think of all the soldiers and others who are murdering children of our loving spiritual Creator in the world today, 2025 to 2026. They use their eyes to get the child in the sights of their bomb or gun to blow their bodies to pieces. They use their hand and finger to pull the deadly trigger that kills the child of our loving Creator. They use their foot to drive a tank to blow a building up so the structure collapses, crushing the children in it to death. Better they were all born lame and blind. Speak truthfully. Matthew 5:33 to 37. Jesus said, "You have heard it said in old times, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear an oath at all, neither by heaven, for it is the abode of our loving Creator, nor by the earth, for her presence is also here, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of a great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and let your no be no. Anything else is superfluous, and is from the evil one." Thomas 6, Jesus said, "Do not lie, or do what you hate, since all things are clear before the heavenly world." As spiritual Christians on earth, we must always be honest, but we can lie if it's to protect an innocent child from satanic children. You can lie your head off. Many people in Germany hid Jewish people when the Nazis were killing them in their basements, and they lied. "Oh no, there's no Jews living here," but they were lying to protect their lives from the Nazis. And a similar thing happens in many war-torn countries, where one side hates the other and kills them, but some of those other children hide those children and lie about it to protect them. Now that lie is a loving lie, as opposed to an evil lie. Charitable works. Matthew 6, 1 to 4. Jesus said, "Take heed not to do your charitable works before men, so as to be deliberately noticed by them. Otherwise you have no connection to the pure spiritual life force from heaven empowering your act. Therefore, when you perform a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and streets, so they may have praise from men. Assuredly I say to you, they have their worldly reward. But when you perform a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your good deed may be done privately, and your loving Creator, who sees all things, will give her love to you for doing so." Always remember, heaven can see us all the time. No one has to know anything about any good things you're doing with your life. It's irrelevant. Heaven sees you. That's all that matters. Sharing the love of heaven with others is our joy. We don't need praise from anyone for doing that. That's a natural function of a spiritual child in heaven, and it's just normal. Pray from within. Matthew 6, 5, 15. Jesus said, "And when you pray and talk to our loving Creator, do not be like the hypocrites. They love to pray in the synagogues and standing on the corners of the streets, so they may be deliberately noticed by others. They have their worldly reward. But you, when you pray and talk to our loving Creator, go within into your spirit and soul, and when you have shut out the external material world, pray and talk to your loving spiritual Creator in this private way, hidden from the view of others. And your loving Creator, who sees and hears you in private, will give her love to you, like a mother to her child." When you pray and talk to our loving Creator, do not use vain repetitions as others do, for they think they will be heard if they speak many words. Therefore do not be like them. For your loving spiritual Creator knows all the things you have need of before you even ask her. One of his disciples asked, "Master, teach us to pray as John also taught his disciples." Jesus said, "In this manner pray. Our loving spiritual Creator in the heavenly spiritual world, hallowed be your name. Your heavenly world come, your will be done on earth as it is in the heavenly world. Give us this day our daily breads, nourishment for our earthly bodies and nourishment for our spirits and souls. And forgive us our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. And lead us away from all temptation, and deliver us from every evil. Amen. Remember this, if you forgive those who sin against you, your loving spiritual Creator will be able to forgive you the sins you have committed. But if you do not forgive others, then she cannot forgive your sin. Reaping what we sow. Author. Jesus teaches we must live an honest and caring life for others, and we connect with our loving spiritual Creator from within our body of flesh by being at one with our spiritual body and soul mind of love when talking to her. She is a spiritual being, and we must be in our spiritual identity as a child of hers to talk with her. This simple prayer of Jesus provides a short reminder and guidance for us of the spiritual understandings we need to be her spiritual children. Jesus draws special attention to having to forgive others who sin against us, so our sins may also be forgiven and cleansed to prepare us to enter the heavenly spiritual world of love. Fasting in private, Matthew 6:16-18. Jesus said, "When you fast for spiritual purposes, do not be like the hypocrites who like having a sad appearance while doing so, for they deliberately disfigure their faces so they may be noticed by others to be fasting. They will have their little worldly reward. But when you fast for spiritual purposes, anoint your head and wash your face so that no one notices that you are fasting. Instead, turn to face our loving Creator in heaven, who sees you fasting for spiritual strengthening, and she will give her love to you." Store your treasures in heaven, Matthew 6:19-21. Jesus said, "Do not lay up for yourselves temporary material treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves spiritual treasures that are unfailing and abiding in the heavenly spiritual world that is eternal, where neither moth nor worm nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your existence and heart will also be." If you perform heavenly actions here on earth, you'll be in heaven. That's where you're going. No one can stop you. You cannot serve two masters. Matthew 6:24, Jesus said, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other." You cannot serve our loving spiritual Creator and material riches and money at the same time. Thomas 47, Jesus said, "A person cannot mount two horses or bend two bows, and a servant cannot serve two lords. That servant would respect one and offend the other." Now when you look at that saying, and remember Jesus said to the Jews, "You're worshipping a satanic war god, you're children of Satan, a murderer and a liar from the start, and you're doing the lusts and desires of the murdering war god. You go to war to Jericho and kill everyone, slaughtered them, the ancestors. And they're still doing it." He's saying to them, stop worshipping that God. And you can see here, you cannot serve our loving spiritual Creator and material riches and money at the same time. When the Jews went to Jericho, they murdered everyone, women, children, men. Then they stole the gold and silver and brass and took it back to the temple of Yahweh. They were worshipping money and murder, wealth and silver and gold. They were not worshipping the Yahweh of love, who wouldn't hurt anyone in Jericho. Jesus is trying to use words which to awaken them to the evil that they're involved in, their dualistic religion of a murdering war god and a god of love, but they called them by the same name. But he had to do it in a way so they wouldn't kill him. Because if he spoke openly about their worshipping a two-headed god, a perverted god, they would have killed him straight away, stoned him to death. And we wouldn't have any of his beautiful parables or teachings or understandings of how to become spiritual while we have a body of flesh before we die, so we don't die. And our spirit moves on full of love here, so we'll be full of love in a world of love. If you want to be. It's free will. A person cannot mount two horses. I mean, Thomas is great. I love Thomas. or bend two bows, and a servant cannot serve two lords. He's almost saying there, you can't serve two gods, a war god and a god of love. That's what he's saying there. But if he said it openly, they'd kill him. See, Jesus had to sort of teach in code to the Jews. Parables. That's why he used parables, so they wouldn't kill him. And the Jews say they knew he was talking about them, but they couldn't do anything because it was a parable. He had to be very clever and wise to last as long as he did for a few years, because they were trying to stone him to death all the time. They just wanted him to blaspheme their two-headed war god and God of love, Yahweh, the two-headed God. If he just blasphemed Yahweh openly, they could kill him, stone him to death. And then we wouldn't have had any of these beautiful teachings. So he had a very difficult task, really difficult. He couldn't openly tell them the truth, although he was telling the disciples more things, you see. Once he could trust them that they wouldn't go and blab it to the Jewish leaders, he could tell them much more powerful things about the real loving Creator is not Yahweh, and lead them into becoming, out of the dualistic religion. But we have to remember that he had to speak sort of in code or parables to the Jews in order not to be killed by them, because they worshipped a murdering war god. And that war god Yahweh, if you didn't do what he said, he kills you. And then he tells his children to kill as well. They didn't do what I told them to do. You go and kill them, my children, Yahweh says to his Jewish children, and they go and do it. That's the war god. They're children of the war god, Satan. The God of loving children, the Jewish children who worship the loving God, they never do that. They go, no, we don't. Yahweh says not to do that here. I think we'll stay with this one. They're the good Jews. How many of those are left? Do not worry. Matthew 6:25-34. Jesus said, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life regarding what you shall eat, nor about your body what you shall wear. For the spiritual life is greater than food rations, and the body more than clothing. Observe the ravens, for they cannot sow nor reap, and have no storehouse or barn, yet the loving Creator feeds them. How much more will the loving Creator take care of you than these birds? And which of you, by worrying, could increase his stature by 4 centimeters? If you are unable to do the least important of things, why are you worried about the rest? Observe the lilies, how they grow, yet they neither work nor spin. Yet I say to you, not even Solomon in all his glory was clothed like one of these. If such vegetation in the field today is then thrown tomorrow into the oven, how much more will the loving Creator clothe you, O you of little spiritual faith? Do not seek after what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have a doubtful mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after, and our loving Creator in the heavenly spiritual world knows you have need of these earthly things. But seek the spiritual kingdom of the loving Creator first, and her righteousness, and all these additional things will be added to you. Do not fear, little flock, for our loving Creator is pleased to give us the heavenly spiritual kingdom. Sell what you have and give to those in need. Make yourselves pouches which do not wear out, to contain a spiritual treasure that does not fail in the heavenly world. So do not worry about tomorrow today, for tomorrow will have its own trouble to care about. Today's troubles are enough to contend with. So Jesus is saying, accept our life every day, but bring the spiritual love into the situations you encounter today in your life. That's the best we can do. Author: while Jesus was well aware of our daily earthly needs to keep our body of flesh alive, he constantly directed us to first keep our eternal spiritual body and soul alive and well, as this is the spiritual body we need to be in good health and filled with the loving spiritual life force from heaven to be able to enter heaven after passing through our death experience. Judge not. Matthew 7:1-6. Jesus said, judge not, and you'll not be judged. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. And whatever you give out to others will be the same you will receive back. Beautiful. So succinct, so concise. It's the law of karma. It's just beautiful. Buddha taught the same thing. Author, Jesus gives these extremely important and vital characteristics of our spiritual identity we must become at one with to enter the heavenly spiritual world. And he warns us of the spiritual law of the ever-flowing river called reaping as we sow, that we must all cross over to reach heaven's shore. Sometimes I like to think of the spiritual heavenly dimension. There's a river between us, this material world of death and suffering, and the material universe. And there's another spiritual universe and spiritual world that's completely spiritual, and nothing dies and everything's beautiful and love is everywhere, so to speak, and it's everlasting. And to cross the river, if you're in a spiritual body and you're leaving this earth world of dirt in your spiritual body that's full of love and light, you walk across the river and you're in heaven and you just feel love because there's no sin around you. There's nothing blocking you from heaven's love. No, sin blocks you from receiving heaven's love, doesn't it? Now imagine all these satanic murderers at the moment in all these armies, how many children they've already murdered and killed and maimed, and the horrible deaths all these people they've caused to all these children of God. Murdered them all. They go to walk across the river and they've got this massive millstone around their neck and down they go. Their sin drags them down into the river of reaping what you sow, and they are washed and cleansed for however long it takes, 100 years, 1,000 years, I don't know. They'll be sorry. Don't go there. Don't kill other children. I'm warning you. Speck in your eye, Matthew 7:3-5. Jesus said, "Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me remove the speck from your eye,' while the plank is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see more clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. If the blind lead the blind, they will both fall into a ditch." Well, we'll leave it there. Again, of course, when we are critical of someone doing something perhaps wrong, we better be careful we're not doing the same thing because our words will mean nothing. So to criticize someone who's doing something wrong, we have to be doing what's right. If you're doing what's right and you're honest and kind and loving, we can say, "Hey, what you're doing is evil," because we're in the love and the honesty and the goodness. So we can shine the light, as Jesus said to, on evil. We are the lights in the world. We are the lights of goodness and love of heaven in a world that is evil because of children who become satanic evil children, false identities, and they create massive evil. But even without those children becoming satanic, even in this world, we still suffer. Our bodies of flesh will cause us to suffer. Just having a body of flesh means you're going to suffer. But our spiritual body does not suffer once it leaves the body of flesh. The ties are completely cut. The umbilical cord's cut. And our spiritual body is either fully alive with love and not covered in any sin, and we can walk across the river into heaven in our spiritual body, just as Jesus walked on the water in his spiritual body, which was fully alive. He just carried his physical body because he was concentrating on his spiritual mind and spiritual body, which his was fully alive. But he said we've all got that in us if we only knew it. He's saying, if you only knew it, if you only experienced what I'm experiencing, you'll understand everything I'm talking about. He and Buddha were very similar. So they're like brothers. And of course, Jesus went another higher level above Buddha. He said, now reach out and help those who have fallen down, sick, the poor, the impoverished, the outcasts. Now, that's another level of love. That is, wow, you can't beat that. That's total selflessness. Serve others, be a servant to others who are the most outcast, the worst, the most rejected. Go and love them. Bring heaven's love to them. That is powerful. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Brilliant. So he went to another level on top of Buddha's understanding, which he also had. So there we go. Well, we'll leave it there at that. We're up to pearls before swine next. So I'll just work through the Matthew chapters now, and I'll try not to ramble on so much at the start. I have to sort of explain that I'm not a Jewish Christian, and I hope that resonates with some children who are looking for a more truthful and honest and clearer understanding of who Jesus really is and who this beautiful, loving, spiritual creator he's talking about really is. My understanding of Jesus is love and non-violence. He is at one with love and non-violence. And as he said to Philip, if you see me, Philip, you see God, so therefore God of Jesus, this spiritual creator in the heavenly spiritual world, has to be love and non-violence. And we know that she is, or he is, because Jesus said so. Her love is like the sun that rises on the good and on the evil. See, once you become at one with love, your spiritual body awakens. You've moved out of the duality of the flesh body. You can even let them crucify your body or kill it, because Jesus knew he had another body now that's eternal. And that's the one you've got to get into, he said, before your body of flesh dies. How do I get into it, Jesus? Become at one with love. Heaven's love from above. Be born again from above with heaven's loving spiritual life force flowing into your spiritual mind, and have an experience in your mind that's completely clear of all evil. Then you will be like me, and I will be like you. We will be children of the loving spiritual creator in heaven. And where does it happen? While we're here in a violent world of dirt. That's the goal of Jesus. That's the goal of Buddha. That's what they taught. Love your way to heaven or hate your way to hell. It's your choice. Choose the first one. They say the other one's no good.